Would you say I told you so? Oh, I told you so.
Hey everyone, it's William Moore and you're watching Beyond the Ties That Bind. I hope that everybody has had a great day and you're gearing up for a wonderful weekend. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about what happened today. Those of you who follow me, who've watched the last two videos, know that I was right. I called what happened today. Now, it could have been much worse. We had a 913 point drop in the Dow Jones. Now, if you go back 6 weeks ago when the Dow Jones was reaching its all-time high of almost 30,000 points, a 913 point drop then would have been bad. But at 20,000 points, a 913 point drop is even worse. It could have been a lot worse today. However, it wasn't. I'm going to touch on why it wasn't in a few minutes. But I was looking for possibly a 2,000, 3,000 point drop. I didn't show my hand there as to what I thought could happen, and that could very well have happened had the Fed not interfered in the markets again today. So last night, as I told you all this morning, I went to the headlines and I saw what Governor Newsom in California did. Today, the governor of New York followed suit, did the same thing, issued a statewide stay-at-home order for the entire state of California, and then New York does the same thing today. You cannot do that in the two largest states in the union and think that that will not have a ripple effect and cause, a lot of negative bad things to happen within financials. These are two of the most powerful economic engines on the face of the earth, and in essence, they were just shut down. You can't do that. And then, I'm wearing my social contract shirt again today because Governor Newsom, in his speech, when he was asked about calling out the National Guard and having, guards in the streets enforcing martial law, he said, oh, no, 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 no. People are well aware of the social contract. Well, Governor Newsom, you didn't sign a social contract. I haven't signed a social contract. And I would be willing to say that the 40 million people you think you rule over did not sign a social contract either. So they can do whatever they want. There is no social contract. No one has put ink to paper and signed a social contract and said that I'm going to do this or that or the other because everybody else is doing it. And it's supposedly for the good of everyone in the state or the good of all mankind, especially when the coronavirus is a fraud. It's a terrible fraud. Only 2 people in Italy have died from the coronavirus, and that's maybe 2 people have died. They don't even know for sure that these people died from the coronavirus. So they're telling us 3,405 people have died in Italy. Not true at all. So you can't trust the numbers that any government's putting out, especially the United States government. But anyway, today we had a terrible day in the markets. As I stated, you had the Dow Jones down 913 points. Now, in the middle of the day, it did look like the Dow Jones was going to actually finish strong, maybe about 400 or 500 points up, and that's really not strong considering we've lost over 10,000 points in the last, say, 2 weeks. However, the reason that the market did not have a complete crash of, say, maybe 2,000, 3,000 points today was because today was a historic day. The Federal Reserve purchased $107 billion in securities today alone. They continued to expand their balance sheet. Now, those of you who have been following this program know that I stated a long time ago the only reason the Dow got up to 30,000 points is because the Fed was continuing to expand its balance sheet since 2008. That's the only reason the market's gone up. That's the only reason the market continued to go up. It had nothing to do with Obama. It had nothing to do with Trump. It was because of the actions of the Fed. So today, the Fed once again intervened, and they couldn't even keep the market in positive territory today. Think about it. A record-setting day. They have never purchased more securities in the history of the Federal Reserve. They took the balance sheet up now to a whopping $4.7 trillion. And they still couldn't keep it in positive territory. It finished 913 points down. It was not enough. So the Federal Reserve is running out of bullets. It's running out of bullets quickly. Also, municipal bonds, they are tanking. So the Fed expands bailout facility to municipal bonds after market meltdown. So in yet another expansion of the Fed's interventional policy and their reach into markets, the Fed decided to expand its program of support for flow of credit to the economy by taking steps to enhance liquidity and functioning of crucial state and municipal money markets. This is a move that they never even played during the Lehman crisis. So we know that they're desperate, and the muni markets, they are collapsing. You know those municipal bonds that you go out and you vote on? You vote up or down on these to make sure that your, projects are taken care of in your communities. Some of these bonds go to finance schools. So these are all tanking. And there's going to be a trickle down effect, a ripple effect throughout communities. You're going to see cuts to schools, which that's fine. People don't need to be sending their kids to government indoctrination centers at all. Parents should be teachers and parents only, because what they're getting in the public indoctrination centers is a canned education that teaches them how to put round pegs in round holes, square pegs in square holes, so that they can operate the machines. They can be smart enough to operate the machines, as George Carlin said, but not smart enough to ask questions and challenge the status quo. So once again, I was right. And I shouldn't really take all the credit, shouldn't really take any credit at all. Gerald Celente, used to email him all the time, used to communicate with him all the time. Great guy, funny guy, great. He's a character. He's got a great personality. He was the one who, a long time ago, taught me how to follow trends, to be able to predict what is going to happen. And when Governor Newsom came out last night and said he was shutting down California, it was very easy to see that that was going to have a ripple effect on the entire economy. So, and also Gregory Mannarino, I started watching this show probably about 3 weeks ago, and this guy is great also. If you're not watching Gerald Celente, if you're not watching Gregory Mannarino, you need to. Also, the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Ron Paul, he's the one who introduced me to this philosophy of freedom. And I've gone farther than what I ever expected to go. My philosophy has changed tremendously over the course of the last, I would say, 12 years due to Ron Paul. So anyway, we have Federal Reserve actions. We're continuing down the road of socialism. The Fed is injecting liquidity into the system. They're purchasing stakes within businesses, whether they be small businesses, large businesses. They're purchasing stakes in these corporations. And I came up with a new word, fascism, which is the fusion of fascism and socialism. What we have, banks, which are corporations, working through the government to purchase the stakes of these corporations, to purchase stake within these corporations. So it's a fusion of fascism, and it's basically corporatism. And it looks like the government is the one that are actually purchasing the stakes within these corporations, when in fact it's actually the central banks working through the government to purchase uh, part of these companies, to now have a stake within these companies. So anyway, the Federal Reserve, they're running out of bullets. They shot 107 billion bullets into the economy today, and guess what? It did not work. I mean, the economy continues to tank. Why? Because we are entering into the greatest depression. I wish the media would quit saying, well, this hasn't happened since, 2008. This is the worst day since 1987. No, you can go back to 1929 and it's worse than that. And then 4 years later, in 1933, you had the market going to zero, and that's going to happen again. We're going to wake up one day and we're going to have Armageddon in the markets, and the markets are going to go to zero, and it's going to be the greatest wealth transfer ever in the history of mankind, where the wealth of the middle class will be transferred to that upper 1%, and the middle class will be wiped out. The markets, mark my word. Now, it might not take 4 years. I'm looking about 18 months, possibly 24 months, maybe even less, maybe 12 months, maybe 6 months. But we're going to have that day of reckoning where the markets are going to go to zero, goose egg. And everybody that's in the market, they're going to lose everything. Now, if I was in the market, I wouldn't be in the market anymore. I'm giving fair warning to everyone. And there's probably people there watching right now that I don't care if you lose everything. I don't care if you lose your shirt, your pants, your underwear, and your toilet paper. But, you know, if I had money in the market, it would not be there tomorrow. I would transfer that money to commodities. But anyway, the Federal Reserve has been expanding the balance sheet since 2008, when the market reached 30,000 points and everybody was heaping praise upon Trump. I knew, and others knew, that it wasn't about Trump. It was only because the Federal Reserve was expanding its balance sheet, which it did today. It expanded it once again today, and now it is at a record $4.7 trillion. 4.7 trillion with the T dollars. So they are the ones that were responsible for that economic recovery that we've been going through for the last 12 years that wasn't really a recovery at all. And I mean, we've had carnage within the bond markets for the last 12 years off and on. We've had underlying factors within the economy, such as importing, exporting, shipping, that have all been going into the toilet for a long time. This was coming without the cover of the virus. The virus was somewhat of a catalyst. They've used it. Governments, in conjunction with each other, have used it to bring about this depression, the greatest depression ever. So, anyway, the Federal Reserve, we continue down the road to socialism. Donald J. Trump comes out every day. There's some type of new legislation that's nothing more than socialism. Those of you who are still Trump supporters, I guess you just can't admit you're wrong. And guess what? You are wrong. And those of us who have warned you about Donald J. Trump have been right. So, Donald J. Trump, he's not the savior, he's not the Messiah. There's only one. And Donald J. Trump is not going to turn this thing around. And you're definitely not going to turn this around by offering solutions which are nothing more than socialism. And you don't turn to the Federal Reserve, the central banks, to get you out of a problem that they created. The only thing they're doing is they're creating a problem so they can come along and make it look like they're presenting the solution and be the heroes in the end. I'm hoping they've overplayed their hand and everything around them tanks, and this is not something that's being used to judge the people of the earth for their complacency and their compromise throughout the years, to where now everything that used to be evil is good and everything that used to be good is evil. That's the way that the entire population of the world has gone over the course of the last 30, 40 years. You have sodomy out in the streets. You have pedophilia. You have just a turning away from morality. So maybe the central banks are being used by the Creator to punish the entire population of the earth. Or maybe the Fed has overplayed its hand, and they will be the ones, that 1% will be the ones that in the end will be receiving the punishment from the Creator for causing all the pain that they've caused over the last 500 years, costing people everything that they held dear to them. So anyway, the Federal Reserve out of bullets. Nothing that they did today was able to stop this. I thought it'd be about a 3,000 point loss. It was only a 913 point loss. Could have been a lot worse. Could have been terrible. The 10-year yield curve went down below 1 point, which, if you'll remember, about 2 days ago, I said, watch for that. If that goes below 1 point, we will see market carnage. The only reason it wasn't worse is because the Fed once again intervened. They're intervening in the markets, whether it be the Dow, whether it be the NASDAQ, the S&P, the bond markets, and they can't stop this from happening. Or maybe they designed it to happen. And this is exactly what they want to happen so they can have the largest transfer of wealth ever. So I think that everything was planned. I think the Trump nomination and then victory was planned. So this would all happen during the Trump administration. So it would set up a Hillary Clinton administration, possibly. That still remains to be seen, but I believe that the Democratic National Convention will be a contested convention. If it is a contested convention, I mean, they could say, we want Donald J. Trump to have another 4 years, so we're going to put Biden up against him. Biden could not beat a dead horse. So anyway, I look for a contested convention, though, with Hillary Rodham Clinton coming out of the convention as the nominee. She goes on to win, and then as the Fed continues their socialistic programs that make it seem like everything is healing and turning around, she'll take credit for it. Or she'll just be used to implement more and more draconian measures which just suppress freedoms and take wealth away from people. So remains to be seen. A lot of what ifs out there, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's a scary scenario, to say the least. And the depression we are entering into is the greatest depression. It's going to be a hyperinflationary depression. Those checks you're receiving, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with the checks. You want to cash the checks, spend the money, whatever, pay some bills with it. That's fine. That's up to you. Every individual has to decide what they want to do. It doesn't mean you're a Trump supporter if you cash it. It doesn't mean that you believe in socialism. Trust me, the government has stole from you more than any amount of money that they're going to give you over the course of the next 6 months. They have stolen more money from you than they're going to give you in 6 months over the course of your lifetime. They have stole from you, they have lied to you, and there's a lot of people out there, people within the human race, your fellow brothers and sisters, that they are the cause of their death. So anyway, do what you want with those checks. Gold and silver up today. Commodities, those are up. Oil was down $5 almost, and that helped lead to the market not being able to stay within positive territory. Also, the yield curve, that led to the market not being able to stay in positive territory. Now, last night, had I known that the Federal Reserve was going to purchase a record $107 billion in securities, I might not have gone out on the limb stating that I expected market mayhem and carnage today. I might have said, well, it could go one way or the other, possibly ending up. At one time during the day, it looked like the Dow could finish up about 300-400, but it didn't. It went down 913. The Federal Reserve could not stop the market from going down. These bonds are running out of money, and as they continue to heap liquidity into the market, as they continue to purchase stakes in these corporations, you're going to see the dollar start to lose its value. We're not going to have a deflationary depression. We're going to have a hyperinflationary depression. You think $2, $3, $4, $5 for a loaf of bread right now is a lot of money? Try $20, $30, $40, $50 for a loaf of bread. They call it Dave's Killer Bread. Pretty soon people are going to be killing for Dave's bread. So we're going to see crime. It's going to start to skyrocket. People are not prepared for what's coming. I don't know if anybody could be fully prepared for what's coming, but a lot of people didn't know this was coming, had no clue this was coming. Some of you were told this was coming, you didn't believe this was coming, but guess what? It's here and it's going to get a lot worse. This is just the beginning. Back in 2008 and 2009, I was telling people this was coming. Even during the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, I said this was coming. In 2010, I said, do you think 2008, 2009 was bad? You ain't seen nothing yet because we're going to have a collapse of the entire system. Now, it looks like it's a planned collapse. That's evil, very evil. Yet it's very shrewd. It's smart of them to do it in this manner. They have, as Rahm Emanuel said, they've taken advantage of a crisis because Rahm Emanuel said, you never want to let a crisis go to waste. You want to be able to do something that you could not do before the crisis, something that the crisis presents you the opportunity to do. And that's what they're doing right now. So, and a lot of you people still putting your confidence and your belief in Trump, I'm telling you, you're going to be disappointed. There's a lot of you out there that just won't admit you're wrong. And that in itself is wrong. It shows that you have no character whatsoever. Donald Trump, the Trump train is being derailed as we speak. I do not see them allowing him another 4 years. But this was all planned. They planned for him to come in, be the leader of the Republican Party, everything go in the toilet, and then Hillary comes in. She looks like she's the savior of the day. I believe there's even a Simpsons episode that tells us about that and foresaw that happening. So, um, you people that are riding the Trump train, it's running out of gas. Plus, it's just socialism upon socialism. I mean, every time this guy comes out and has a news conference, he's, proposing some new socialistic legislation to try and help us, saying that these measures need to be carried out. Really? No, they don't need to be carried out. What needs to happen is the government be dissolved and let the free market, true free market, not the capitalism that we've been under for the last 100+ years, but the true free market take over, and then we could be pulled out of this mess. But that's not going to happen unless people rise up and demand something change and demand that there be no more central banking, fractional reserve banking. Look up fractional reserve banking and you'll see what I'm talking about, and you'll see why it's so dangerous. So as stated, gold and silver were up. Uh, you know, the Federal Reserve actions, they're not going to help. They're going to send us deeper and deeper and deeper into socialism. We do not want socialism. Um, you know, when a lot of people think that Donald J. Trump came onto the scene. He was this great nationalist candidate. He was for the little man. Do you think that the Federal Reserve, the central banks, which have owned this country since 1913, were going to relinquish their control when this man, who was only worth about $2 billion anyway, came onto the scene? Do you think that they were just going to relinquish control? No, they plan this. He's their puppet. And then he's surrounded by Rothschild henchmen such as Wilbur Ross, Steve Mnuchin. Steve Mnuchin, socialist program after socialist program being proposed by this man. Things that the central bank is wanting to implement for years. And all of a sudden he's coming out with this stuff. So, people need to wake up. Trump is not the answer. The answer is no government at all. The answer is freedom. Freedom is the answer, and freedom is the solution to this this problem. You see, the central banks, they created the problem, and now they're offering solutions that may or may not work. And if they do work, they're only designed to work to bring you into debt, slavery, and servitude for the rest of your life, to where you will be poor and working for the rest of your life. So the time of prosperity is over. We are entering into the greatest depression. It's over. It's not going to recover. Also, Vladimir Lenin stated, The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves, and that's what happened with Donald J. Trump. People in the Tea Party, people in the Republican Party got behind him, thought that he was this nationalist type of Tea Party candidate almost. And so then when things go south underneath him, these people, they're afraid. They're like, well, man, I voted for the guy. I don't want to revolt against him. Yet, if these same measures were being proposed under Obama, Clinton, Sanders, whatever, and these are the same types of measures that Bernie Sanders wanted, I mean, my goodness, the guy doesn't even have to run for president anymore. He won. All of these socialistic programs are being, proposed. So anyway, it's socialism. And if it was anybody else but Donald J. Trump that was proposing these types of programs, these socialistic programs, the Republicans and people who voted for Trump would be up in arms. They would be screaming about this. But they can't. They feel that they can't because they're not big enough to admit that they're wrong. Come on, people. Grow some kahunas. Get some character. Get out of the cult of personality. Remove yourself from the state of cognitive dissonance. Do some critical thinking. Admit that you're wrong. There's nothing wrong with admitting that you made a mistake. There's nothing wrong with that at all. We all make mistakes. Hey, I'm batting 1,000 right now over the course of the last few weeks with my predictions, but hey, I've been wrong quite a bit in the past. So, there's nothing wrong with admitting, hey, I made a mistake. What I did was, by voting for Trump, that was, I was hoodwinked. Even the best of people can be fooled. So, anyway, it's going to be an interesting week ahead. I think that we're going to see more states. I hear that Pennsylvania is now going to shut down and issue a mandatory stay-at-home order, and you're going to have more governors out there that want to be in the spotlight, want to have their 15 minutes of fame and get in front of the podium or behind the podium, have the cameras in front of them, broadcasting it to the world that they're going to shut their state down. So I don't see this ending anytime soon. As I stated in one of the previous videos, they plan this to last for 180 days. Even though the coronavirus is a fraud, there's nothing to it. It's going to fade away once warmer weather gets here. And only maybe two people have died in Italy. And we don't know how many people have died in America. The tests are faulty. They don't tell you whether or not the virus is actually mutating. A person could have the virus in them, but their immune system could have already defeated the virus. So, what we need to do, we need to look to the Creator. We need to quit trusting in man, quit trusting in government, and look to the Creator. We need to reach out and grab hold of the hem of his garment, that tassel. And, those of us who do that, everything's going to be all right. The world might fall apart around us. It might go to hell in a handbasket. Actually, it can't go to hell in a handbasket because last time I checked, the stores were all out of handbaskets. So it's just going to hell. Anyway, the answer is not in man. The solution is not in man. And and I'm trying to get things in my life together because, as I told a lot of you on a video that did not show up here on YouTube, I'm still struggling with a major battle concerning hate, extreme hate towards certain people. But anyway, and trying to get that under control. But whether or not, I'm successful there, there's one thing that I can say. The solutions are in Scripture. The solutions are within trusting and having confidence in the Creator. So, reach out to Him. Grab hold of the hem of His garment. He's the only one. It doesn't matter how big and bad this gets. It doesn't matter how big and bad man thinks he can be, and man can devise all sorts of evil, and the people who run the central banks can think that they're gods and think that they're so big and bad, but they're not even a speck of dust in the eyes of Elohim. So those of you, that's the best investment that you can make. I'm trying to make that investment myself, trying to be successful in making that investment again, even though I've fallen short so bad over the course of the last year with this battle against hate. But it's the Creator, people. That's the best investment you can make, holding on to Him, because He will not let you down. And no matter how big and bad that man that runs the central bank, or those people who run the central bank, think that they are, they're nothing compared to the Creator. And when you have the hedge of the Creator's protection around you, there's nothing that those men who think they're big and bad can do to you. They can't touch you. So anyway, everyone have a great weekend. Um, Things are going to get interesting. Things are going to get a lot worse, and I don't look for them to get better anytime soon, but I'm hoping that they do. I'm hoping, as I said, the Fed has overplayed its hand, and, that we can come out of this and see the dawn of a new day, a day where everyone enjoys freedom, individual freedom, that, personal responsibility is practiced, and that everybody, works together for the good of everyone, but there's no coercion, and that you have, um, like I said, personal responsibility, people keeping their nose in other people's, people keeping their nose out of other people's business, and people not trying to force their lifestyle upon others, and just, that we could have that society that Messiah talked about, where you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So until next time, people, William Moore with Beyond the Ties That Bind. Peace. Shalom.
Breaking the law, breaking the law.